Thank you for joining us at our Extreme Connect breakout session. I'm excited to have two of our panelists join us from our higher education vertical. My name's Dave Savage. I have the privilege of leading our SLED organization for North America. We've been on an incredible roll this year, and I'm joined here by two incredible customers. But I'm going to ask Holly O'Gara, who's part of my team as the regional director for the Northeast, to give us a quick introduction of herself, and also of our panelists that are joining us today. Holly?
Hi, so thanks for coming to the higher ed breakout session. And yes, I get to introduce two of our great customers here in the Northeast, and they both have some really challenging last names, but I'm going to give it a go. Rob Klopatowski and Louis Quispe are here with us today, and Rob has come to us from Endicott College, and Louis is from Stevens Institute. So I'll let them introduce themselves, and we'll start with Louis. Louis, can you give us a quick intro of you and Stevens?
Sure, thank you, Holly. My name is Louis Quispe. I'm the senior network engineer at Stevens Institute of Technology. We are located in Hoboken, New Jersey, just across from New York City on the Hudson. We joined Extreme 3 years ago as a major project of a life cycle replacement. I'm with Stevens close to 5 years now.
Excellent, great. How about you, Rob? Want to tell us about Endicott and introduce yourself?
Sure, my name's Rob Klopatowski. I work at Endicott College in Beverly, Massachusetts. I've been with Endicott for almost 19 years. My title now is Director of Infrastructure Services, and Extreme is a big part of what we do pretty much on a daily basis. We've been with Extreme through somewhat of a different journey than some. We started out with Bay Networks, which then was Nortel, which then was Avaya, and then most recently Extreme. So we've been through some changes. We've seen the products go through some changes, but we're certainly happy to be here and continue on with everything that we've been doing with Extreme.
That's great.
Thanks, Rob. Louis, I know that you've gone through a very recent, you're going through a very recent upgrade right now. Would you mind taking us through some of the details of that upgrade and decision making that Stevens College, why they chose Extreme?
Sure. As I mentioned before, we went with Extreme we made the decision to go with Extreme 3 years ago. That project started with the core and some of the distribution part of the network. But the one that you're referring to is we have a wireless upgrade project. And with that, we had to evaluate 3 different companies, as you know, and our system is about since 2013, I would say. So it's about 7 to 8 years old. And the finalist, as you know, was Extreme Networks. And that will be about, once everything is said and done, about 2,000 access points throughout the campus on about 50 plus buildings, and also in outdoor coverage.
That's excellent. Louis, can you tell us what some of the compelling features that we had that kind of swayed your decision for an Extreme selection?
Sure. So one of the things that we were looking at is possibly moving away from the controller-based model, on-prem controller, to more of a cloud management model. And Extreme was one of the the options that came to us, and it made more sense to us. What I was very impressed with was how easily we can just plug an AP as long as it's registered with the system, and and as long as you have the right configuration, it works right away. So that is one of the reasons that we wanted to, or we looked at Extreme, like you asked, for that the newer technology, Wi-Fi 6, as I mentioned, an 8-year-old system and Wi-Fi 6, being available is one of the reasons why we decided with Extreme.
Great. Louis, just in tagging on to that, I know that, an 8-year-old system moving into the cloud, obviously probably seen a lot of changes, I'll say post-pandemic changes here as we're trying to get back to campus. In onboarding devices is, I guess from a solution standpoint, did Extreme stand out anywhere when you talk about onboarding devices and leveraging any technology like PPSK?
Sure. So exactly. So how do we improve the user experience, right? That is one of the number one priority in the project. So one of the things that came to it's very important to us was how easily or how can we make it easier for our users to join the many devices that now each student has, for example, right? So PPSK, as you mentioned, was one of the things that is we were very impressed with. Why? Because that gives back the ability to the user to have the control of their experience. No longer do they have to go through a process of registering devices, making sure to find out where the MAC address is, if it was a device that did not support 802.1x authentication, for example. In fact, when we did one of our surveys after the POC that we did with Extreme, the users are very happy with that they no longer have to register their devices, and then they can quickly get their devices online. So that is, to us, is very important, right? How do we make it seamless to the students specifically, for that network experience? Because at home, what they do is they have the pre-share key and they get the devices and off they go. So the PPSK was one of the main reasons, or one of the things that we were very impressed with in making things easier for the user experience, for sure, along with the security that comes with it, improvements that come with it, of course.
That's great.
Great, thank you. Rob, how about you? You've been an Extreme Fabric customer for many years. Can you talk about some of the benefits that you see coming from a fabric architecture that you've put in place?
Sure. Like many others, we were a little bit afraid of the fabric technology at first, just because it is something we heard a lot about coming through Nortel and Avaya, where they were really championing this, saying how great it was. And when you look at something like that, a lot of the time you don't really believe that something could be as good as marketing really says it is, because that's just kind of the way the world works at this point. So we were a little scared at first, but what we did was back in 2015, I believe it was, we implemented a couple of Extreme VSP cores, and one of the stipulations from our SE was he really wanted to make sure that we started with fabric and kind of got into the fabric world from the ground up. So at that point, we replaced our old cores with a pair of 8284 VSPs, and that turned out to be a blessing. It took us a little while, probably maybe about 2 years by the time we were able to touch every single building and get the fabric capable switches out to the edge. But then once you do that, the idea that you can have these redundant links, and now you can start creating yourself a little bit of a kind of like a little web across campus rather than that fiber ring that everybody used to talk about. So now at this point, we're kind of looking at more of a mesh network where we don't have to worry about loops. It's really a loop-free technology. We're able to attach devices using fabric attach pretty easily. A lot of the devices configure themselves to a point where VLANs can even be created on the fly in an event that it's needed at the edge. So if you plug in at the edge and the VLAN doesn't exist there, we've been harnessing both Extreme Control and identity engines to be able to create that at the edge. So the other nice piece to it is that when you're trying to train one of your newer, younger engineers to use this network, tagging's pretty much gone. You don't have to worry about tagging uplinks from core all the way to the edge. You tag at the core. I mean, you set up SPB or fabric in the core. You set it up at the edge, and it just works. So it's been a big deal for us. We've been able to set up dual links to every single one of our buildings. So now we have full redundancy, and we're able to kind of move forward with this mesh technology versus that straight hub and spoke.
That's great, Rob. I've heard from other customers as well, adds, moves, and changes that are out there, right? Fabric makes your life so much easier. Do you see that with your staff?
It's significantly quicker. So in our case, I mean, we're roughly 3,000 students. We're roughly 55 buildings, give or take. And there's really only two of us that do the network. That includes the wireless, that includes the physical infrastructure, cabling. So it's really important for us to be able to keep things as simple as possible, because we really don't have the time or the bandwidth to have to do extra steps. So by removing those extra steps, it's a huge help for us.
Yeah, efficiency. 55 buildings and 2 people. That's impressive, Rob.
It's very efficient.
That's great.
Yeah, I would like to add to that, right? In agreement with Rob, is that it's not only the students or the users, right? But it's also operational. What does that mean operationally for us? And just like Rob said, tagging, right? When you want to move a network over from one side to the other, if you have to, then now you're more dependent on making sure that those changes are done properly, right? Because a lot of us have added a tag, and then all of a sudden all the other tags were removed, and then you could have locked yourself out. So it definitely, the fabric makes it a lot easier to just do it on the fly, because it's not only one point of change and not the entire chain, right? So I totally agree with that. It makes it easier for the size of our team, and the size of our network, for sure.
So as the industry is moving to the cloud and cloud-based network management, maybe each of you can give kind of your perspective of how each of your campuses is taking their journey to the cloud. Louis, what's going on at Stevens regarding cloud-based management?
So as we recently, we've gone through a new change in leadership in IT. So one of the goals is to we call it Cloud Smart, which is move whatever we can out to the cloud that makes sense, right? So obviously network management was one of them, and as we do that, then we start thinking of what else can we do there in terms of data for I mentioned to you in our previous conversation, data intelligence. Well, now that we have Cloud IQ there and we have all this information there, well, what can we do with that? And then the topics come, start, rolling in, right? Space management, just behaviors of the users, where are they going, how they're using the data, and then make decisions based on that. So it's going to be a long road, but we are starting there. We are starting to move things over, workloads, resources, but not just that, is what do we do with that data? And can we put it together, right? That's how we're looking at the many projects that we have here at Stevens, and cloud is one of them, because it's one thing going to the cloud, but what do we do with that? And can we combine all the data that we have to help other departments make better decisions?
How about you, Rob? What's going on at Endicott when it comes to the cloud?
So again, as time moves forward, you start hearing that term cloud. So for years, really, it was offsite hosting, that kind of thing. And you really start worrying about the security implications of it, but not just that, but the stability of internet connections and things that might cause some pain points. I'd say going back to, for us, 2011, 2012, when we first even started putting our email on the cloud, that was a scary thing for us, thinking, what's going to happen? What's going to start moving? What could change, or what could go down that really could just completely impact our business, or just make us completely stop for a day, depending on what's going on. Fortunately, that hasn't been the case. The Cloud IQ is still a fairly new product for us. It's something that we're taking baby steps. Hate to admit it, at times I tend to be, I don't want to say dinosaur, but I'm sure there are plenty of others that agree. I still spend a lot of time in CLI and doing a lot of our own custom code and a lot of our own custom management for a lot of these devices, just because it's what I'm comfortable with. So it's been really eye-opening to see some of the things that Extreme's really trying to do with that cloud, by pushing that amount of data and by pushing that amount of the management opportunities out. So it's something we don't have to worry about on a day-to-day basis. So for us, it's a little bit of a slower process. I mean, we've moved a lot of our infrastructure out into the cloud, as far as operating systems, our compute, things like that. But As far as the Cloud IQ, it's probably really our first infrastructure base from the Extreme standpoint. So we're looking forward to it. It was one of the primary drivers in selecting this product. It was one of our primary drivers in continuing on with Extreme after looking at other products out there, because they really, at times, I know Extreme has a lot of dreams about what they want to do with it, but I'm not even sure they totally know what's possible. I think the possibilities are endless. I think it's one of those things that as time goes on, somebody's sitting in a room and just says, you know what we can do? And next thing you know, it's there. So the interesting thing about it is we looked at this product pre-pandemic about a year and a half ago. We just started demoing it when we pretty much went into shutdown mode. And to come back a year and a half later, really without looking at it at all, and coming to see how much has changed in that 18 months to say 18 to 24 months, it's really, really, really been an impressive change. It's pretty clear that the company's put a lot of resources, a lot of time, and a lot of energy into the product, and really believe that that's their product going forward. And from what I've learned, everything by looking at the products that have come out, even since just the acquisition from Avaya, it's been an amazing transformation as to what the company is trying to do with all the product sets that they've acquired. So we're on board. We're really excited about it.
Rob, that's great to hear. You know, we like to call it we're moving at cloud speed, right? We're moving quick. So great to hear, you know, the features, functionality that we're building into the technology, and that really comes to one of our last questions that we have is, you know, what sort of, we had a crazy year last year with COVID, you know, as far as attendance and students being on campus, remote learning. You know, what do you see as we're slowly getting back to everyone being on campus? What do you foresee some changes to be in, you know, what it looks like a post-pandemic campus after we get everybody back? What are some of the changes that you guys that you think you'll see this next year?
Who's going to start? We're going to hear from Louis.
Well, if I may, so for us, right, it's going to be, I don't know how soon we're going to, you know, be 100% back on campus, right? But it's going to be, the expectation is going to be hybrid. And what does that mean, right? We're going to have to support those users on-prem and also remotely, right? And what does that mean? How does a network stand up to that, right? From our perspective is making sure that whatever application, obviously, that we decide to implement, that we either able to prioritize, we either able to visualize and see where the weak links are, right? And how can we quickly turn around and resolve these, right? One of the things that it is important to us, and we looked at that in the POC and wireless perspective, is we notice that a lot of times, specifically the students, don't report, are not quick to report issues. But can we have the system tell us that there are issues that are not being reported, and how can we fix that? That is what we want to do. And then, because now these students are going to be in the dorms, even if they're on campus, they're not necessarily going to be going to a classroom. They're going to be in the dorms attending a classroom. So can we make sure that the services that they expect in the classroom from a network perspective are also in the dorms, and they can have the same experience, right? Traffic coming from outside, can we have that visibility, right? Can we have a resilient network? And can the fabric help, or whatever it is that we decide to do to make sure that that network is always there? Those are the changes that I think are going to be up front for us.
Okay, great. How about Endicott? Any changes anticipated?
So for us, it's been interesting because we've been back to school 100% since the very beginning of the school year. So really, all our students have been on campus. And for the most part, all of the courses, minus a few, have been completely in person. So the idea of the hybrid learning is still there, especially with our graduate school, and for the people who are isolated, or for the people who had issues or medical reasons that they didn't have to be in class. They'd be on our infrastructure. They'd be in our res halls. They'd be on our campus. So at times, what we found pretty quickly is that the design that we had for wireless prior to the pandemic was that we were more looking for coverage, making sure that we could cover a room, making sure that we would cover an area. one of the big issues is that we're being a Zoom house. The issue we started having is that we no longer just needed the coverage, we needed the quality. We needed higher bandwidth in certain rooms. So what we started finding is that we had some holes in our coverage where we couldn't get the Zoom quality video up high enough for our users to be able to participate in classes. So it became quite a bit of an issue early on in the semester. And then as time went on, just like Luis was saying, the idea that students don't say anything to us to be able to find these issues. We have to find these issues a lot of the time in the hallway, at the water cooler. It's really hard to try and figure out where these students are having issues. So what we started having to do is we started having to reach out and look at our own data to try and figure out where are these issues, where are these people having problems. So one of the big reasons that we started looking towards the Cloud IQ product was because of this information that it can provide, the tools that it provides to be able to figure out where could our issues be coming from and what is the next issue we may see. So for us, it's been different in the fact that we've had to figure out some of these things, but what has been solid all the way through is the fact that we do have a solid foundation when it comes to our infrastructure. The core and the edge switching, all extreme, has been solid all the way through there. It's just a matter of trying to figure out where we want to go with our next generation of wireless, because wireless has always been a pain point, just based on the nature of what it is. And we're hoping that by implementing the Cloud IQ across campus, that it'll take away some of those pain points because of that visibility. So it's been a big thing for us, and it's something we're really looking forward to moving forward with Extreme on.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you both. We really appreciate that you took the time with us today, and appreciate you guys as Extreme customers. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I couldn't agree
Thank you,
more.
guys.
Thank you. Rob and Louis, as you talk about your experiences with Extreme and Cloud IQ, I heard the tools, the dashboards that you're leveraging, the visibility, where we're heading into the cloud, and what you're hearing today at Extreme Connect. Thank you so much for being a panelist today, and appreciate you being customers.